Welcome back to the None of Our Businesses podcast. In this week's episode, we have a nonprofit spotlight, and our guest this week is the Executive Director for Mental Health and Addiction Association of Oregon, Janie Gullickson. She's also a member of the board member of the Blanchet House. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, AJ, for having me. Yeah.
So actually, full disclosure, we go back. I used to audit you.
Yes.
For people that don't know, nonprofits require audits. So Janie and I go back, 6 years, 7 years, something like that?
Yeah.
So, and actually, before we jump in talking about MHAO, I kind of wanted to talk about your history because we always had fun conversations about your journey to being an executive director. So I was hoping you could share that with our guests and kind of give them a little bit of about your background and how you arrived in your path of recovery.
Great. Okay. Well, I won't go back to in 1968 when I was born. However, I am a person in long-term recovery, which for me means that I haven't used drugs, drank, or committed crimes since June of 2008. So, and my recovery journey also includes mental health recovery. So I think people are pretty familiar with the concept of addiction recovery and what that might look like. And while every journey is still very personal and unique to that person, mental health recovery should be just as well known. And so I like to push that out there as well.
So talk to me about like kind of the moment that I guess in the people's recovery journeys that I've heard, were you kind of forced into recovery? I mean, not that you can force somebody into recovery, but usually like when somebody has, or they, hit rock bottom or get to a place where they feel like they need help, it's either sometimes it's court mandated, and they figure out like, oh, that was actually a benefit, me going to jail, like a blessing in disguise because I realized I didn't want to do this anymore. Was there a situation like that for you?
Well, I think it's a little more complicated than that. It seems like because of the war on drugs and just the criminalization of addiction over the last several decades or more, since the 1930s and beyond, the criminal justice pathway has been the route that most people have been mandated into treatment. And we know that's not the way that typically works, although many people after years and years of cycling through getting arrested and or being mandated treatment, it takes what it takes. And so I wonder if treatment had been accessible, familiar, and available early on, because I spent 24 years in my addiction and didn't get access to treatment until, I'd cycled through, years of wanting help, not knowing how to access it, and then cycling through emergency departments and jails. And then finally, again, 24 years after being in full-blown addiction, I got access to treatment through the prison system.
Oh, okay.
So, and it was there. I was there and had already been there for a year. So had some time separated from, active use. My brain was coming back. And so the timing for me was really in that moment what did change my life. And so treatment, it was really cognitive behavioral therapy based treatment. It was 6 months long. I was able to practice a new way of life. It wasn't totally focused on my addiction or my mental health. It was really holistic. And I think that was
so when you're talking about that behavioral kind of thing, it was like putting a structure, I guess, or like a routine down that you could kind of follow.
Yeah.
Because I mean, me personally, I find like if I want to change my habits, like a good routine, fixes my bad habits most of the time. And it's amazing what like little tweaks, like if you, I really wanted to lose some weight. And so the way that I did that is I built it in my routine. I forced myself to go to the gym in the morning.
Right.
And I think the same thing holds true for like somebody that feels anxiety, now not saying that a routine fixes people's anxiety or anything, but I think somebody that feels anxious about the day or something, if they had more of a routine structure, it could lessen that anxiety around it. So it's interesting that your main, I guess, kind of driving force towards recovery, or the kind of like the thing that sat with you, was that routine and that behavioral kind of structure.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes. And options to deal with cravings or old habits that I had formed, criminal thinking, just everything from nutrition was a part of it, how to interact with my parents, where I was going to parole to, and probably, I want to be respectful of their memory, but,
Sure, of course. Yeah.
Our parents' best efforts.
Right.
That's why happy to have grandkids, right?
Yeah,
Second
right.
chance.
It's true.
But, practicing how to, it was role playing interactions with my parents, because that's where I was going to parole to. Things like that. So, and it also, like you said, created structure, created routine, helped us change our thinking by actually putting what we were thinking and feeling on paper, reframing that. So, and practicing that. I mean, do something for 6 months, they even say 3 months, right? And you're going to form a new habit. So, like you said.
When I think it's like any skill, right? Because I think it is a skill to be able to deal with those outside influences and then be able to, deal with it on the inside, those external forces. So it is like kind of like a martial art with yourself, I guess, right? Like you keep fending off with all the shit that's coming your way, right?
That's a great analogy. Yeah.
Yeah.